Katia, whenever you're ready.
Today I will be refuting the claim that online college education has a significant negative impact in our traditional educational system. The speaker's secondary claims are: first, online classes are limiting face-to-face interaction; second, online degrees are worthless in comparison to traditional college degrees; and lastly, online education undermines social interaction. The first secondary claim, that online education is limiting face-to-face interaction, is an obvious one. Due to the nature of online classes, the predominant sources of communication are through videos, emails, messaging, etc., etc. No evidence is provided, however, suggesting that these forms of communication are inferior to face-to-face conversation. A different method of communication does not mean that less information was absorbed. In fact, a group of MIT, Harvard, and Tsinghua University researchers tested the before and after performances of students who took a mechanics review course online and in person, and they found that the amount learned online is somewhat greater than a traditional lecture-based course. The evidence that he does provide is a statistic about the percentage of full-time professors on campuses, which was 78% in 1969 and 33% in 2013. Without providing any warrant, the speaker commits the slippery slope fallacy by making the inferential leap that the popularity of online classes are to blame. Also, other factors such as the likeliness it is due to school budget cuts are not accounted for. The speaker is also states that online classes are inefficient because students can't set up office hours, but there is no evidence implying the necessity to have physical communication methods. It's also ignored that since some online programs are facilitated through physical universities, face-to-face communication is available during the professor's office hours on campus. Another statement mentioned is that there is less accessibility to an on-campus library, but no backing is provided to link what kind of negative impact it has on traditional education or face-to-face interaction. Ultimately, the first secondary claim falls short because the speaker assumes most of the responsibility on the audience to independently make their own inferential leaps. For the secondary claim that online degrees are worthless in comparison to traditional degrees, the speaker gives the example of Laura Callahan, who used an unaccredited university degree to gain employment. However, after reviewing her story, I found that Hamilton University, the unaccredited college she gained her degree from, is not even an online university and located in Wyoming. The evidence provided was irrelevant to the quality of online university degrees and simply proved that unaccredited degrees can be acquired from any type of institution. Next, the statistic is provided that 68% of people who took the Gallup poll prefer traditional education and 34% believe online education is excellent. This statistic is invalid because people's subjective preferences or opinions isn't a qualification of whether an online university's degree could be considered worthless, nor is it explained how or why it would be a negative impact on traditional education, and the speaker again assumes the audience will make his or her own inferential leaps. In the same poll, it was also found that 72% of people thought that online colleges provided the same or better educational programs. So the second secondary claim also falls short because the evidence provided did a better job at contradicting the argument rather than supporting it. For the last secondary claim, which is that online schools undermine social interaction, the speaker adds a vague testimony about the importance of planting seeds, then makes the rash statement that networking is not possible online. Planting seeds would be especially true if you were a young college student networking to help your future. However, this is not always the case for online college students. According to Education Today, which examined the 56 million online college students, the average age of a student was 34. A person who's 34 has already had social interactions and networking experiences. But this also doesn't mean that networking online is not possible. The speaker does not take into account the different methods of communicating with classmates online, such as group chats and online boards. Michelle, an online student, testified, saying sharing your knowledge and past experiences with other students is easier to do online than in a traditional classroom. And before finishing his argument, the speaker also throws out the claim that online schools are undermining physical activity because people are not walking around campus enough. This information had no backing and does not tie into the point of the argument. In conclusion, although the argument did a good job in demonstrating some of the lost aspects of traditional education, it proved to be problematic when undermining online courses in comparison to traditional schools because the information was not clearly linked and secondary claims did not have enough backing or warrants to support the assumptions. Thank you.
Well, you clearly ID the main and secondary claims. On each of those claims, you have very specific responses, both evidence challenges, reasoning challenges, and counterclaims in some of those situations, sometimes probably a little bit more thoroughly than necessary. I think there's a little bit of overkill on some of the reasoning challenges, in fact, that I don't know that it's required. If the advocate provided evidence that doesn't fit the generalization that they're presenting, then the notion that the audience is forced to make the inferential leap. How are we supposed to make an inferential leap if the evidence doesn't apply? Just tell us that the evidence doesn't apply, and therefore you can't make that leap. I think that's the way you want that claim to go. Otherwise, everything was really spectacular. You did a good job explaining each issue, offering good counter information. You had statistical data on the effectiveness of online education in comparison to the advocate, who you said had no statistical data on those particular points. There's a lack of evidence challenge on almost all of the points that the advocate presented where there were assertions, and you've got, I think, sometimes better explanations of what the advocate's argument were than we had in the original argument, so that helps quite a bit. I thought it was interesting that the study that gets cited at one point that talks about how people prefer one to the other, in the very same study, the vast majority of people, even more than prefer the one type of education to the other, also think that you get the same or even better education in an online institution. So it's a little strange to me that we've got inconsistent results on that, but both of the inconsistent results seem to support the position that you're taking on that point. I also like the analysis that you had on the third point about the average age of people who are taking online classes and the way you think about the social networking thing. I thought that was very effective. All right, thank you.